If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything that you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on any listening platform like Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many, many more. It's everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome to the Wartime Leadership Podcast, where we explore what spiritual resiliency looks like from different perspectives. We often focus on the physical, emotional, and social areas of resiliency, but too often we neglect the spiritual pillar. The spiritual pillar looks different for everyone. We will be exploring what spiritual resiliency looks like in the lives of our guests, who are people from all different walks of life. Today's episode is sponsored by Success Draft, where we help you transform your dreams into drafted plans. Head over to successdraft.com to get started on your future today. This episode's guest is one of my best friends, and I am so excited to have him on here today because we've known each other for what, like 6 years now? 7?
Yeah, 6 or 7 years, yeah.
6 or 7 years, and it's just been a continual relationship because the thing is, we haven't seen each other in about 3 years.
Yeah.
But yet it was a simple pickup and start that conversation all over again, exactly like we left it, right?
Right.
All right. Hey, folks, this is Randy Lamar.
Hi, guys.
Randy is a retired Air Force, we will say Chief Master Sergeant.
Senior.
No,
Senior.
we're gonna say Chief.
All right.
Because you had the rank, you just weren't able to put it on before you retired.
Yeah. You get broke and they put you out the pasture. You know.
I know, but hey, I'm happy.
Senior though, so it is what it is.
All right, so we'll say retired as a senior. But this man has had some life experiences enough to last a few lives, actually, I'd say.
Yeah, kind of got that Forrest Gump thing going for me sometimes.
And I was running. Yeah. But you're gonna hear just a smidge of it today, because what he knows, what he's done could fill up multiple books time after time after time. And so we get him for about an hour or so today, and you all are gonna be blessed. Hey, Randy, how about this? Let's start off with 5 simple questions.
I'm a simple guy. Let's do it.
Well, these are simple questions, and let's hope they're simple answers. What is the greatest movie of all time?
Oh, man. Well, I mentioned Forrest Gump. That's not it, though. Wow. And I'm such a movie buff.
I know.
Yeah, and I'm forever quoting movies, I guess. Gosh, if you're talking categories and comedies, I got to go with Caddyshack, But if we're talking, just classic, great, perfection type movies, I'm kind of an old school guy, so we're going back into the Godfather trilogy, and we're looking at some of these other movies like Apocalypse Now.
Mm-hmm.
The Deer Hunter was certainly, that one is.
There's a ton of impact in that, right? Like that movie alone, just looking at psychological effect of war and other aspects. Yes.
Sure, but if you want the standard Star Wars, bro, come on, right? I won't do it.
I'm not impressed. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I won't do it. But yeah, the greatest. I can't even give you one simple answer on that because it is not a simple question. That's why I ask it. I know, but now you have my opinion on that.
Well, there you go. Okay, so there's multiple different greatest movies of all time, from Caddyshack to Deer Hunter. Wow, that is a really big span.
Oh, yeah, that is a gap, isn't it? I mean, that is,
yeah. No.
When you got Indiana Jones thrown in there, he's in there somewhere. I mean, you know what? I'm going to say Tombstone. That I think that is my absolute favorite.
I'm your Huckleberry.
Yeah, I just that's the one. That one,
and it's a good one. Val Kilmer. Come on.
Oh yeah, that's probably his best role by far.
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding me? All right. Let's see. So, what is one thing that you find repulsive?
Liars.
Okay.
Yeah. I will. I had been trained to interrogate, and so I recognize this in people when they're putting me on. I guess that probably makes me pretty good at my job for what I do for church, as far as security type stuff. But it's funny because I watch them just spin themselves into the ground, and it just repulses me. Like, dude, I know come on, help me here. I know you're lying.
just give me the right answer.
Stop. I'm willing to let it go and walk away. Just Here, I tell you what, I'm going to go get a shovel out of the shed to help you dig that hole you're digging. So
I'm going to help you out just a little bit more.
But yeah, just liars in general, just grinds my gears.
I can definitely take that one. Who's your favorite superhero?
That's tough. Well, when I was a kid, it was Batman, or nowadays the Batman. But they've done some weird things with Batman now. I saw the new one; it was terrible. I'm going to go with Captain America, and the reason being is he just that proud, patriotic, for duty, for God, for country. He kind of projects that all the way through. I always liked Captain America,
even though he was given all of his special powers. Still projects it, right?
Well,
you can't give him the charisma, though.
No, that's Tony Stark. Tony Stark had all the charisma. He was just a smart aleck, which, okay, yeah, I'm more like Tony probably than anything.
I was just about to say, you're right there. Yeah, a little bit more Tony than anyone else. All right, so Captain America, it works, it fits you, so we'll go with it. I'm giving you 2 plane tickets, Randy. I'm giving you 2. One is to somewhere that you've already been, and one is to somewhere that you have never been.
Ooh.
Where are they to?
Ooh. The place that I've never been would be New Zealand. That's a bucket list. I don't think I want to do the flight, the 15, 16 hours and endure that, maybe sedate me and send me, wake me up when I get there. That's where I've been. And then where I go is Breckenridge, Colorado. I love that place. And, that's the other ticket. And we love going there. We go there as often as we can, actually.
I was about to say, you go there like once a year at least.
Right. That's right.
I mean, it's a beautiful place.
It's been a while. I mean, COVID and, the wife was doing the first sergeant duty, and there was all these travel restrictions and everything. I think she had a 350-mile travel radius for the longest time. Out of San Antonio, we're not even getting out of Texas, man. We're okay.
Where do you want to go? Desert or
we're going to San Marcos?
Yeah.
This is fun.
We're going to go shopping at the stores of San Marcos.
We did kind of bust that radius a couple of years ago. Line of duty determination. But we drove up to Branson, Missouri, which was pretty cool. And I got back and everybody's like, "Oh, what was Branson like?" So, well, it's kind of like Las Vegas without all the prostitutes and the gambling. I mean, the alcohol. It was wholesome.
Or the fountains. You didn't have fountains.
It didn't have the fountains, but it was wholesome and shows and all that stuff. So it's kind of cool. The Wonderland Zoo, was really cool. They have a Noah's Ark Zoo there. It was kind of cool.
Oh, that'd be neat to go. I want to go to Kentucky. I want to go to the the Noah's Ark?
Yeah. I want to see that. That's like supposed to be like replica size, right?
Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be to the exact same specifications of everything.
We could do that. I'm trying to drag the family to Gatlinburg next.
Oh yeah.
I love Eastern Tennessee. I would love to live there someday. Maybe not Gatlinburg, Johnson City, somewhere like that.
And if you go there, it's a 6-hour drive from where I'm at. So, we could just,
we'll swing right by.
Or we can come up and,
meet.
Yes.
I haven't met the adopted son, and I can't wait to meet him. He's like such a sweet kid.
He is. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we got him right. The year after we got here from San Antonio. So everyone that we want him to meet, he hasn't met yet. So
I remember we had some letters and stuff to write out to approve, recommendations. That was such an honor and a joy to write that. So
I'm surprised that they actually let us adopt him after it got your letter.
No kidding. This guy's illiterate. Nathan's a good guy. He want God, get kid.
If y'all can't tell, we have relationship, right? This is where healing happens, is in the midst of relationship. And these conversations have gone back and forth between Randy and I. And I know his background, but now I'm pleased to get to share a little bit of his background with you. So Randy, why don't you give us your background? Just kind of take us from where you were, where you grew up, what you were doing.
I grew up, I'm a Texan, I grew up in Northeast Texas out of ways. And typical, I only had 67 kids in my graduating class. It was awesome. We just good old boy having fun, back then. Got into a little bit of trouble here and there, drove teachers crazy, that type of thing. But I was an athlete, played ball. Finished up, graduated from school and everything. I had wonderful parents. My brothers passed, when I was little. And I was only like 4, so I never really got to know him. He was 7 years old, died from liver cancer. And so I didn't really get to know him that well. And my parents really, really doted on me, during this time growing up like that, because of that. And, my dad was retired military. And so he was just a great dad. He was full of wisdom. I remember I wanted to buy a car. I'll tell you a quick story. Can I do that? Can I tell a quick story?
Absolutely.
Daddy's wisdom here. So I wanted to buy a car. I was 15 years old, and Texas has a hardship license thing. And we lived a ways out, Dad, I want to get a car, so I can get to school. I don't want to ride the bus. I'm a sophomore now. I don't want to be a dork, And so, you're all concerned with image at that age, right? So he said, well, you tell you what, you go find a car and buy it, and we'll get you that hardship license. You got to find, So I had some money saved up from working, wasn't a lot. And I remember I was riding, and we were driving down this country road, and we saw this car with this little sign on it. It's $400, and it was, mind you, it was a '68 Mustang GT. $400. Now that thing probably didn't even have an engine in it, at this point. I'm just like, oh, well, that's the one, because I'm like, oh, GT, and so I go back to my dad and I tell him this, and he says, Randy, you do understand that car probably doesn't run. I said, yeah. And I tried to play on his heartstrings a little. Thought maybe you and I could fix it up, father-son time, the hot bonding, so I got him on the fish hook, right? At least I think I did. He says, all right, tell you what, go ahead and get that car. I said, well, Dad, it's $400. I only have like $230 saved up. That's a little bit of money back then. It was the 80s, I'm older. And he says, so tell you, I thought maybe you could lend me that other part of that money and I'll pay back over time. And Dad says, you know what? I'm going to do you one better. I will give you the rest of that money if you cut your hair. Yeah, I know. But
y'all can't see him, but right now he's got a clean head, no hair, except for his face.
This is the 80s. So I had hair, man. I had hair. And so I tried to finagle him a little bit more. I said, yeah, but Dad, Jesus had long hair. And he goes, yep. And he walked every place he went. And so I cut the hair, got the car. Yeah. And the rest is history on that. But that's the kind of wisdom my dad imparted. That was the type of thing he was good at. He was really quick. So I had wonderful parents. They raised me wonderfully. Went to college, played a little ball, not very good, transferred, finished up. I graduated from East Texas State University. It was East Texas State back then. It is now Texas A&M Commerce.
Okay. Well,
So
I know that
I
one.
went from being a Longhorn to an Aggie. That's great. So I'm an Aggie. Not really. I mean, they're Lions, but I guess I'm in the A&M system now. But at any rate, okay. I'll accept it, I guess. Got a job out of college, worked for AT&T, hated it. Just the grind. And I'd always been intrigued by like getting into the FBI. I thought, hey, this could be kind of cool. I liked all those shows on TV when I was a kid and stuff. I was like, all right, cool. Took their test, took a battery test, took the test, and I said, you blew the lid off of it. You're good at what we need and everything, but you have no practical experience. And at the time, they were really looking for somebody that's either military or law enforcement, to kind of roll into that. He said, you go get that experience and we'll take you in a heartbeat, give it a few years or something. I said, okay. And I thought about it and I went back to my regular job. And so like an idiot, I joined the Army. Yeah. At that point, we had just finished with Desert Storm. And so I'm like, okay, my life expectancy is higher here, certainly than in law enforcement, let's say in the Dallas-Fort Worth area or somewhere like that. So that's what I did. And that was eye-opening. Did some combat medic stuff. That was fun. Wound up some not so wonderful places, Somalia and Bosnia, Herzegovina. And not that bad though, but I had a friend that was on the other side of things in the Air Force. And this guy, he was like, man, let me tell you something. There's a ever vast gap of quality of life between these two service branches. And I was like, well, that's cool. Let's see if I can do that. And so I actually had to get out of the Army and I went and I lived with my parents for 6 months. Oh Lord. With my two young boys and my wife at the time. And that was rough 6 months. Did some odd jobs, worked as a parking lot striper, just whatever I could do to get a little extra cash. It wasn't good. Finally, the Air Force took me, went in as an E5 actually, which was kind of neat. Yeah. And they sent me straight off to Misawa, Japan. After they trained me, I was an intel analyst. They trained me to be an intel analyst. And the kicker was I'd already had Russian under my belt. I'd learned Russian, so I was a Russian speaking, analyst type on top of all that. So that was kind of cool. And it was a pretty cushy career. Went to Misawa, Japan. Loved Misawa. Japan was neat. Learned some intel, weirdo things going on there, breaking codes and stuff like that. And, just intel work, right? Standard Air Force intel work for DoD. And, about towards the end of that, I was getting ready to head back for my next assignment, which is actually here in San Antonio at the time. I've been here twice. And I met a recruiter, several of them from a 3-letter organization, one of those 3-letter organizations. And they sold me on it. They said, oh, your life will be different. You get to do this and that. It's going to be cool. And, all right. What do I got to do? Well, you take this test. We're going to take some tests on you, see what you know. And because you have a certain set of skills that we actually like, because you do have some of the combat skills that a lot of Air Force folks don't have, and you do have the Russian language. You have some of these tactical skills that you would need in this job. And I can do that. That sounds great. And I took their test, and they came back, and the exact words from the guy, I'll never forget this. He came to me, you have a certain moralistic flexibility we like to have in our agents. And
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, and I didn't really know how to take that at the time. I was just kind of like, is that good? Is that bad? I had like that bad taste in your mouth. I'm like, man, I suck. I'm a jerk. This is terrible. Like, for what we do, that's perfect. And I'm like, okay. And so I did that. 11 years, actually. I kept a regular Air Force job, but this was also where's Randy? He's TDY. Oh, okay. Nobody ever really caught on. There was one guy that caught on. I met him here. I ran into him here in San Antonio. He actually was a church mate, and his name's Joe. And he was stationed with me in Alaska when I was up there. He goes, "Yeah, you were gone a lot." he said, were you with, when he said the 3-letter organization, I'm like, shut up. He's like, okay, figured this out. So yeah, it was kind of a squirrely gig, but I wound up doing some not so fun things all the time with them, some questionable things. You got to play both sides of the coin. Certainly for the greater good, I guess. And we can touch on some of that stuff later if you want.
Well, and I think that a lot of that has to do with the vantage point of the individual. Perspective is everything. And I think that you were called in to do a job that not a lot of people have, number one, the mental capacity to be able to do, and number two, the moral capacity, which I think is what led to maybe some of your internal strife that you had later on, which we'll talk about. So
struggle. Yeah, it was a big struggle. It really was. But I got through that, and I got pretty injured a few times. I got hurt pretty bad a few times. A lot of it was my own stupidity. Wrong place, wrong time, doing something stupid. But yeah, in fact, I've had, I think Sophia counted it up not long ago. I think it's 17 separate surgeries to put me back together.
Wow.
Yeah. To the point of, where you scan, you go through the airport, you're in that little scan thing, you're standing there like your hands are up above you, and we were coming back from Colorado last time. I was going through there, coming back from Breck, and he says, so just step there, and I step up there, and I get to the other side of it. He looks at me, he's like, "You poor bastard." I said, "No, dude, I'm okay. I really am."
You walk out, and TSA goes, no.
Yeah, and
no.
I don't realize it. Yeah, there's metal in my ankle, they're in my knees. I got a rod in my shoulder. I've got my back is caged and built back up. I've got a back stimulator inserted in my back, but I'm here. Yeah. And that's okay, So yeah, plates and screws, hooks and gapper tape and twine, you name it.
You got speed tape holding your back together.
100 mile an hour tape holding my knees together. Yeah, it's good stuff. And so they kind of put me out to pasture towards the end of my career. I went back to like regular Air Force. It was cool. I was wearing a uniform actually most of the time then, and I became a functional manager. That's kind of like the guy that steers people's careers and stuff for the unlisted side. Did about 6 years of that. It was horrible. Well, about 5 years of that, and then just retired. I was like, got put out to pasture again. They said, "Dude, you can't run anymore." I'm like, "Yeah, can't deploy anymore." I know. So, but now I stand retired. And at the time, I was very bitter. We've had this talk. I wasn't ready. I would have done it for 30 years. I was certainly in line to do that, obviously. And it was at 21 years, and I was just pissed. I was just, this is this can't happen. This is all I know. I got
or so you thought, right?
Right. And this is what I know. And golly, it took a while for me to see my purpose and what God certainly wanted me to be doing, and to understand that and not fight it. That bitterness will just eat you alive. That's my story. It's kind of how I got to where I'm at now.
So what was that moment? That was that moment where you finally said, okay, what's my purpose?
Well, it's interesting. I grew up in the church. Folks took me. It was like we started Methodist church, and they left that and formed a Bible church with some of those folks that were there. Because at that time, I don't want to get into politics. Everybody was getting to where they didn't like that kind of stuff. But and so they straight up gospel Bible church. Good, that's good. And I was raised in that, and I certainly knew who Jesus was. I certainly knew the truth about things. I certainly understood that. But I found myself becoming hardened because some of the things I was having to do, some of it, again, was self-influenced. In college, I got a little wild. And you tend to move away. The further period someone moves away, the more hardened they become. It's a lot tougher to come back to it. So honestly, I didn't come back to Christ until after I'd retired. And it was even a couple of years after I'd retired, actually. And just, I knew the truth. And Sophia and I were talking. That's my lovely wife, Sophia. And then we were talking one night, and I'd had a dream, and it was just, very overwhelming. And I couldn't remember the details of the dream, but I do remember that it was God telling me, you need to come home. You need to come home. And it just weighed heavily on me. And we talked about it. So we got to go find a church. We've got to get plugged back in. We got to start abiding.
Yeah.
The church. She grew up in the church too. It's the same deal. She had drifted. These things happen when we try to live on our own merits and not follow fully closely. It's like sinking in the water when you take your eyes off Christ, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Deal. And so, yeah, we got plugged in with the church we're at now, and I was struggling still with it. Not with my faith so much, but understanding that I could be completely healed because I had developed some really terrible post-traumatic stress from all the things I've been in. And I didn't even know I had it, really. Rewinding back a little bit towards the last few years of my career, I didn't really know I had it. And I had a good friend, his name was John Olenberg. And I remember sitting there in the office one day, I was doing my little functional manager thing. And he said, you really need to go see a professional, medical professionals, for some help for this. Because he said, dude, it's weighing you, and I can see it. You're depressed, you're angry. And PTSD is its own weird animal. All these little things come from it, anger outburst, alcoholism, addictions, just anxiety, just terrible things, right? And so I had anxiety. I was angry all the time. I'd be driving, it'd be just a perfectly nice day, and just get Tourette's for no reason, just random spikes of fury. And I'm thinking to myself, that can't be healthy. And so
there might be something wrong.
Yeah. And so he got me over to Wilford Hall over here, 4th floor Wilford Hall. And that was the psych ward back then. I'm like, oh, good. I'm the voices in my head, I had a different perception of it. It wasn't anything like that at all. But, they diagnosed us. Oh, my gosh, man, you have PTSD, bro. I'm like, okay, what do I got to do? Well, we're gonna run you through some treatment and everything. So I did that for a while. I actually got hypnotized at one point, so I would talk a little bit. And they played the recording back. You have to be willing to do that. I don't think nowadays I would let that happen. I think I was just so desperate at that point because I had repressed so much and just put it, back in the recesses of my mind, like it never happened. Like a blackout drunk almost. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and we had this program there at the church. One of my good friends, Chris Campbell, he just said, "Look, man," and my wife Sophia, we have this program called Refuge, and you really, really should get plugged in with it. And I said, "Well, Refuge, what is that?" He said, "Well, it's like a recovery program." I said, "Well, I'm not an alcoholic or anything, and I wasn't." And he said, "No, but this one is specifically for folks with post-traumatic stress." And I said, "Well, I've already been through therapy for that." He said, "Do you feel like you're healed?" And I could not honestly answer him that. I kind of looked at Sophia, a day or so later, and I asked her the same question. I said, "Do you think I'm healed from that?" She goes, "Randy, you have a Vietnam nightmare every night. Come on." You're like, it is. It's like that. The horror. It's like Apocalypse Now every night. It's because you really need to do this. And so I swallowed a lot of pride to do it, but at least I think I did. When I first went in there, I'm in this group. I'm like, arms folded. I'm kind of like this, just sitting back.
I'm here to learn.
You're right. And I got done with the first session. I went home, and Sophia says, "Hey, how did it go?" And I said, "Man, they didn't get nothing out of me, man." She says, "It's not an interrogation, you idiot." Open up a little bit. But it took some time. In fact, I went through an entire season of Refuge, no change, because I was just so hardened, so closed off. And Campbell and Sophia, get your butt in there, doing it again. Go. Like, all right. And I went back in there, I was doing it again. And I was a believer, I was a Christian, but man, you could just just hanging over your head, the anxiety, the twitchiness, the jumpiness, the anger. And then, dude, I had exquisite anger. At that point in my life, I was either pissed off or asleep, Those are the two states of living. And so I did go back through it. And Yeah, it was about session 4. We started talking about identity. Your identity is in Christ. And I remember the facilitator, he just kind of poking me in the chest, not physical, so much, but just poking me in the chest with things, getting under my skin a little bit. What about you? You had to talk? Are you too good? And it all came flooding out. It got me angry, actually. And I just started letting it go. And the next thing I know, I'm like letting everything out. And I'm like ugly crying, like snot bubbles and everything. It's just ugly. But it was a beautiful moment because at that point, I had this visual of this big heavy anchor that was on my shoulders. And I took it and I just threw it down right at Jesus Christ's feet. And I said, you take this. I can't do this.
And that's a perfect sign
and
of what it looks like.
My life has never been the same since. And I will never question and I will never turn away. See, and it was that realization at that point that I am not in control, but I have an advocate. And it changed everything.
See, and I know Chris, I know Campbell really well, and he will be persistent. He will be persistent, but you and him are about the same height. Now, Sophia is
my factual
4 foot nothing, right?
Yeah.
She's super short, and Randy, you're super tall. And when Sophia looks at you and says, "No, you're not," that was a huge milestone because of the fact that you were open to her, not to the other people around.
Yeah. I mean, I love my wife and, she's my best friend. I married my best friend for a reason, and I'll be transparent. This is my second marriage. My actions, the anger, I told you I had exquisite anger, just awful anger. And I was gone a lot. And for a long time, I blamed my ex-wife for everything. She did this, and this is why we divorced. And the truth of the matter was it's a two-way street. I wasn't there. Even when I wasn't deployed, when I was home, I wasn't present because I was elsewhere. My mind was elsewhere. My thoughts were elsewhere. I was angry. And so I drove her away. I know I did. I still have 2 wonderful grown boys. Nick and Jeff are wonderful, and that's good. But I've forgiven her. I've tried to make amends. I don't know if she's accepted or not. It doesn't matter. But those are 2 important steps in your recovery: is forgiveness and amends. And forgiveness, real quick, when we touch on that, the root of all bitterness, addiction, any iniquities anybody's holding on to, the root of any of that is all centers around forgiveness and unforgiveness every time. I can promise you that. I've been teaching this for so long now. It's like second nature to teach these classes and to lead this ministry. And I forgiveness in and of itself is literally just setting something aside. Mm-hmm. You're not saying, hey, you know what, you and I are great now, everything's hunky-dory. That doesn't necessarily work that way. Because again, everything's a two-way street. But when you're forgiving, you're saying, I forgive you for this hurt, and I just don't want this to hang over me anymore. I'm going to put this over here.
Yeah.
And things might come up from time to time that drive it and get the anger up, and you start thinking about it again, and it's a process, and you go right back to, you hit your knees again, right back to the Lord, work on it. Forgiveness is a process. It doesn't happen. It takes time. Amends is the same thing. I call amends, forgiveness is ugly sister. It's just as bad. And that's a hard step, man.
Now, hey, you all don't know, anyone listening. I mean, there's some of our friends that listen pretty regularly to the podcast, and they'll get this. I remember watching the transition of this back 6-7 years ago when Refuge started, when all this kind of came, and you could see that there was just these kind of layers that were coming off.
Yeah.
And there was different layers of Randy that were being kind of just ripped away. And it hurt you a lot.
Oh, it did.
Oh, we know it because we saw it. I got to witness it, and I get to see this end of you, and I'm just like,
yeah.
Yes, there is that moment.
We had to get through that crusty, nasty old, we killed that old man off little by little. And, like I said, I give them, when they come in for their ministry, I give them 3 scriptures right away, So what I'm doing now, I lead a ministry now on Tuesday nights at our church for 12 weeks. We do it in seasons, and it's called Regeneration. And I can't take credit for any of that or anything like that. Watermark Church in Dallas, Texas actually started Regeneration like 17, 18 years ago now. And it's actually, our program is based on that. It's part of their program, but Campbell and I went up there and we've been indoctrinated in their program. They taught us, we've been through all their seminars and whatnot. And we are approved to teach these courses, as fit. But what I was going to say, when they come in to Regeneration the first night, in fact, we had a first night for this season, just this last Tuesday night on the 30th. It was an amazing experience. And I always arm them with scripture when they come in. I say, I'm going to give you 3 scriptures and you got to know these and these are going to stay with you. Because this is not going to work for you if you do not wholeheartedly buy into these scriptures and listen to them and use them. And then you need to memorize them and know them always. And the first one is James 4:7. It says, resist the devil and he will flee. The devil's a clown. Let's face it. He's a clown. I always picture him with this big Ronald McDonald nose. He's an idiot. And he thinks he's superior, but he's not. And he can't read your thoughts. He's not that good. So if you rebuke the devil, I always tell him, rebuke him out loud. In the name of Jesus, rebuke him out loud, because if you do it in your head, he ain't going nowhere. Rebuke him out loud. Resist the devil and he will flee. I rebuke you in the name of Jesus Christ. You have no place here. You must go. And he does. The second I give them is James 5:16. And that is and it works really well because the groups that they're in, where they sit and they go to these circles, and they talk with like-minded folks that are going through the same thing. It's that, James 5:16 is, confess your transgressions to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed. The fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. Amen. Wow. And then I always give them 2 Corinthians 5:17, which, you are a new creation in Christ. That is your true identity. You're a new creation in Christ. The old is gone, the new is gone. Right? And so I tell them, you memorize those and you think on those and you believe in those and make those part of your everyday mantra while you're abiding in the things that you're doing right and you're going through these steps. And I promise you, they will give you so much wisdom, because the Holy Spirit will just stir every time you bring those up. Arm yourself. That's the word of God. That's our weapon. When you have the armor of God, what's our one weapon? Is the sword of truth. That's the word of God, right?
And it's the truth.
Right.
There's no flip to that.
Yeah, the coolest thing I think that we do is the week 12 when they graduate. We'll graduate. No. We don't do that. But we tell them, we give them a little card, like 3x5 card or whatever. Not that big. It's just like a 2x3 card, whatever, little index cards, and they come in there and we have a fire pit going. And I tell them, what brought you here? Think back on what brought you here. Okay. The first thing about that is a lie from the enemy himself. That is not your identity. That is not who you are in Christ. That is a lie. Whatever that lie is, I want you to write that on that card. That iniquity, that sin, that addiction, whatever it may be, you should write that on that card. I want you to put that in that fire, and it's gone. And it's a really good visual exercise. It sticks with them. But I always give them a little bit of homework with that. And now I want you to go in and I want you to get your head in that Holy Bible, and you need to pick out scripture that directly refutes that lie, because that is the truth. That's the truth. And I have that, I have it on a little block of wood in my truck. It's like a little log thing, from those handicraft stores or whatever. It's just written on there, but it hangs there in my truck. And mine's 2 Corinthians 5:16. I am a new creation in Christ. It really helps me when I'm driving, because I used to get really angry driving. Idiot cuts you off, and there's those random spikes of fury, Tourette syndrome, But now, I think I told you this the other night.
Oh yeah, you did.
I throw invisible grenades at them. Not where they can see me doing it, mind you, but it's just kind of, this is a way to just, you do the little cook off, and that's gone. It is a wonderful stress reliever. The kids love it. They think it's funny. The wife thinks I'm crazy. It's awesome. I'll vary it. I'll pull the pin with my teeth.
It looked like a pirate as
yeah. And I'll just toss it as I drove by. And you can, visualize. It's awesome. And I just wiggle.
And just you, knowing the kids, knowing Sophia, knowing your foundation that you have, that man, she keeps you so level. But
I didn't have her. Holy moly.
I'm sitting here looking at the picture that's behind you of the shepherd and the sheep.
Oh yeah.
So that is an amazing accomplishment, because I remember when I got mine.
Yeah.
When John Van Pay handed that to us and said, "You're now small group leaders. You're going to go out and lead sheep and stuff." And I know that was a huge step for you. It was one of the first steps, before leading the big group, but to be able to take your own small group of individuals, to be able to pour into them, to take and show that resiliency to them. So how would you define spiritual resiliency?
Real definition of spiritual resiliency resides in how you abide daily. I mean, you've got to start with that foundation. For me, Nathan, I get up at 5:15 every morning. I don't care if it's a day off. I don't care if I'm on vacation. I got to have that time with the Lord. And it's an hour more sometimes, just depends. And it's threefold. I'm praising, I'm worshiping. Sometimes I'll go up in the movie room by myself while the family's still asleep. We got a movie room upstairs. It's pretty soundproof. Crank up the worship music. Sing a little bit. I sound like I'm loose farting underwater. I don't sing a lot. Not good. You're not good singer. Not good. And so I do that, and I read. Obviously, this year I'm doing the chronological Bible. I've read it through a couple of times before, but I'm doing the chronological, different perspective. I'm in Ezekiel right now. That's always interesting. A lot of prophecy in there. And then there's obviously prayer time. And then there's times I'll find myself prostrate, and it's just weeping sometimes. Other times just overjoyed and just elated. And if I don't get that every day, if I'm not nourished like that every day, it's going to be a bad day.
Yeah.
Because I don't have that foundation anymore. I need to start my day like that. I need to feel the presence of the Lord. I need to be walking with Jesus daily, and I need to do it all day. Because a guy like me, with the PTSD that I have, and I still have it, I'm just healed from, recovering from it. I need that. I need that advocate. I need that foundation. I need that friend to walk with me daily.
And that's a good way to say it, because it's like I said earlier, relationship, healing comes in the foundation of relationship. And that's the same thing here to here as it is, north to south as it is east to west. Right.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. And for resiliency, my gosh, I can't think of anything better. Things are going to hit you.
Mm-hmm.
Things are, I ran into an issue today. I'm not going to get into it involved the DMV, but early this morning, I thought I had all my ducks in a row. Went over there. No, you forgot this. You're naked. Oh. And so I don't say anything in there because I'm not going to show my bad side in there. I'm going to be a good boy, Took a few deep breaths, walked out to the pickup truck, started the pickup truck, growl, 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 called the wife, growl, growl, growl. I love you. I'll be home. And that was it. But that's kind of how I did it. Rather than just, a few years ago, it would have been this big old thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have taken it out probably on the poor lady across the counter who didn't know. She's just doing her dang job, And I'm stupid. I would have,
Yeah, those crazy 3-letter agencies.
And what kind of and what that's really good. But what kind of witness is that if I were to do something like that?
Yeah.
And so in all things that we do at all times, we need to be walking in the Spirit. And that type of resiliency right there, that's a really good example of how I've learned to bounce back and not slip back into this, because it can grab you at any time. All you got to do is turn your eyes away.
Well, and I think a lot of people get caught up on the deal of, well, they won't know that I work here, or they don't know that I do this. But what if they actually walked in the door and darkened? Yeah.
When I saw you at the DMV, you were acting like a horse's rear end. And
you remember me? I was on the other side.
Yeah. And you're wearing a headpiece. Oh, you're head of security of this church. Oh, that's great. That's good to know.
Yeah. I mean, that can be more damaging.
With the region. No, I did that. Oh my gosh. How embarrassing.
Wow.
Oh wow. You're the region pastor, yet you bit my head off a couple of weeks ago, and that has ruined that relationship and that any potential of reaching them through our program and having the Lord touch their lives. And
then generationally.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So how do so you talked about how you fill your cup, your spiritual resiliency, how you do it, but how do you do that with your family, with Sophia, the kids, like your boys?
Well, that's different. So, for me and Sophia, again, it comes down to we attend together, church together. We try to do it all together. One of my rules in this house too is mealtime. And it doesn't always happen because busy lives we got one that's graduated now. Michael's graduated. We have Alize's 17 this month. Lord, what is going on? She's 17. Josh is going to be 16. So we got a sophomore and junior. And so they got lives and this and that. And they go to youth group, or whatever it may be. And so it doesn't always happen. But one of my rules is mealtime. We will eat together one meal as a family every day. We need to sup together. That is biblical, that we need to be together. We need to do things together. And it's been more of a challenge as they become teenagers. It's a lot easier when they're younger, certainly. But also to take those moments with each one of them individually. I'm proud of you. I love you. You're doing good things. Use common sense. One thing I always tell my kids, I think we're some of my stepkids, but I call them my kids because they really are at this point. I always tell them, before they leave the house for school, you guys are salmon. What? You need to be swimming upstream. You follow the crowd, you're going to get jammed up. Go against the current. Don't follow the crowd. Be salmon. And so, and they'll say it, I was like, what are we? Oh, we're salmon. We're salmon, but it's helpful to them. And they're teenagers, and there's certain things at times that they say that I don't think I like that, or, especially with the daughter, I'm just like, oh, it's my baby girl. No, I just like it's now, and so I'm like, well, there's certain things that they say that I'm just not super comfortable with necessarily, but I always tell them, what I love is the fact that you're honest and open and you are communicating, and that is 90% of it.
Wow. Yeah.
I can't help you if you're not communicating.
Wow.
And you know what kind of dad I am. I'm like super protector. I mean, if your audience doesn't know, what I actually do, I'm just kind of a lay pastor, really. But what I actually do is I'm director of security for my church, and we have 8 church plants now. And I'm over all those too, and so I'm an extremely protective guy by nature, to protect the flock type of guy. And I got cameras on the house. And maybe I'm a little paranoid still. I don't know.
Well, no, I think that you've seen too much of the bad world that you want to be able to protect the rest of us from it.
Right. And, Campbell, our buddy Campbell, he said it before. He said, oh, thank the Lord for Randy Lamar and his PTSD, because he protects us, he sees things we don't.
But the amazing thing is, and we talked about this before, Randy, is I said they chose the right guy. They have the right guy in the role because you've seen the worst of what humanity has to offer. You're still dealing with some of it.
I've been taught to think like a bad guy.
And and you do a really good job at it.
It's kind of creepy, but I mean, yeah.
But you use this, you've reformed the skills that you have in order to face a future that
Correct.
you don't want to see.
Correct. And so, like the guys that serve for me on the safety teams, and what I teach them has got a lot to do with, resiliency, speaking of it, because it's, you need to learn how to verbally de-escalate things. You need to learn how to talk to people in order to fully protect the people of this church, to uphold the policies, to deter disturbances and things like that. We need to be ministering to others. And so in a case study, okay, you look at, and I hate to bring this up, but the church in Fort Worth a few years ago up in White Settlement, there was a young man that had come in. He was wearing a fake beard and an overcoat. It was in September. He had pulled out a shotgun during the service. It's on video. I've seen the video, and it's awful altogether. But he managed to shoot the pastor and an usher before this other gentleman took him out that was on their safety team. And he used it was brilliant too. It was like 308. It was 50 feet with a 380. And which is just incredible. He dropped him, it was a great shot. But the point that bothered me the most about it, once I studied the whole thing and what really went down, is they knew who he was. And so, and they knew who he was, and nobody talked to him. All they did was have him under surveillance. Is that cutting it?
No.
Right. So if I'm there, if I'm leading it, my first thing I'm going to say, hey, bro, what's up with the fake beard today? And I mean, I'm this close to him. At that point, it's me and him. If he does decide to get squirrely, it's just me and him, and it's over. And I promise you I'm faster. But it's over, and nobody else gets hurt. Otherwise, if I do that, maybe it strikes something in him, and he's like, oh, I'm going to think twice about this now. Or, oh my gosh, somebody cares.
Somebody noticed me. Right.
And that's it. That's it. And so I teach these guys, I said, look, we get these calls on the radio. Hey, this guy over here's acting squirrely or whatever. And this guy came in and he's got a backpack with I hate the world sticker on it or whatever it may be, Well, you know what? Somebody needs to go talk to him. Go talk to him. And that's what I do. I go talk to him. I say, hey, and the first thing I say is, hang on. And I smile. And I, of course, got a little earpiece in. They don't know who I am from Adam. I walk over there and smile. Hey, my name's Randy. Now, they don't know if I'm a pastor, if I'm on the worship team at that point, or if I'm security, right? I probably looked, I've seen my face. I'm not a good greeter. Me and Iacona would be very bad greeters. I'll tell you that right now. Peter, I'm sorry. I had to throw your name out there. But, you get this earpiece in, and, you give them your name and you get their name. And use their name. Hey, how's it going? Are you doing okay? Have you been here before? You just get that ball rolling. You find a commonality. Oh, you're wearing a fishing shirt. I love fishing, whatever it may be. But try to get, some kind of commonality going. It is a game changer.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, that's when real ministry begins. In 99.9% of the cases, the whole time I've done this, I've taken one person to the ground. And it was terrible, and I felt bad, but it had to be done. But the point is, I engage with so many people every week. Our lead pastor, John, he asked me one time, he said, how much stuff goes up on, really happens on Sundays and everything that you guys have to say, oh, John, if I told you that, you wouldn't sleep at night. Just don't worry about it. We got
Sometimes it's best what you don't know.
Just, you stay up there at the 300,000 foot view, and I'll stay down here where I belong.
Well, and you're right, Randy. There is so much healing that happens in that moment, because we look at it as hurt people, but healed people heal people.
There you go. And do you know how many that I couldn't give you a number, but there's so many that I've talked to in those situations that they wound up coming to refuge at the time, or they came to the regeneration ministry because I've invited them. You know what? We have this thing on Tuesday. You really should come. It's okay. I mean, and I tell them all the time. I said, look, this is the one thing I absolutely explain to people. And I think this is why the regeneration ministry works so well. Is myself and every one of the facilitators that work with me in there, James, Taryn, I'm giving you a shout out. I love you guys. I'm telling you, we've all been through it. So we're the real deal. I call it proof of purchase, bro. We're the real deal. And so
proof of purchase.
You like that, huh? Yeah,
I do.
And so you get these guys coming in there and they're like, oh, you wouldn't understand. You wouldn't. Okay, try me, bro. Try me. Because look, everything that you've done or going to say, you're not going to upset me. You're not going to turn me off. You're not going to freak me out. Everything you've done, I've probably done it worse. I'm not some seminary trained pastor standing in front of you, bro. I'm just a dude. But see, here's the thing. I know something that you don't, and I want you to know it. Because I want you to have real joy and real hope in your life. And you can get it. It is there. It is obtainable.
And this just, man, Randy, just seeing who you were to who you are and who you choose to be, it's night and day. Number one. Number two, it's beautiful because I get to share this with the world at this stage, right? If they had seen you before, wow, bro.
Oh, dude, you wouldn't. Most people probably didn't like me.
Mm-hmm.
If I came to your door back in the day, it was probably not a good thing for you. I was there for a reason, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not some big, huge, muscle-bound dude or anything, but it's what you know, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was a pretty ornery guy.
And it's also what you see, because when you see you, you're like, okay, this is a beastly of a man who's probably going to rip my head off.
Sure.
So
I was a master interrogator, so I mean, it works well.
Mm-hmm.
My kids call me the human lie detector, which they they hate that.
Flip your wrists out. Okay.
Yeah. Let's take a look at those eyes. Oh, yeah. I remember, like the daughter. I was like, she's like, I told her before. I said, I always know when you're lying. Hey, I said, you have a tell, honey. Well, what is it? I'm not going to tell you that.
Like, yeah, right.
What's wrong with you?
Well, here's what you do, and then you just watch it.
Yeah, or give her some fake thing. Well, you always tap your foot 3 times, and then she's like, just make something up bizarre.
She's looking down at her foot.
Yeah,
no, it didn't tap.
Yeah, so then
so why don't you? I know that you have plenty of situations, but why don't you give us one that you can think of where you had to use and use that spiritual resiliency in order to be able to actually navigate through to get through the other side?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned before, this is my second marriage. And my wife's ex is a not so savory guy. I'm not going to throw rocks at him or anything like that. But at the time when Sophia and him divorced, back in the day, the kids were very, very little. And she was being deployed, out to Iraq and whatnot. And while she was gone, he pretty much got custody of the kids. Things just, that's the way things worked out. It was bad. And since she was gone all the time, she had to kind of let that go. Well, fast forward, I'd known her for years. We were friends and everything, but we never considered dating or anything like that. It was just whatever, And when we finally did start seeing each other, which was kind of cool for me, I was like, I can't believe this girl likes me. I figured she's out of my league, and I've seen myself in the mirror. I'm no prize, And so, but he'd done some really nasty things, and it was very hurtful to Sophia, and it was really getting on my nerves, and it was making me very angry, to the point where I really wanted to do a little physical harm to him. I didn't. I kept that from happening and whatnot. Fast forward a little bit. Long story short, we got custody of the kids full at that point. He was just kind of like he got part-time, once in a while he'd go see him or whatever. Well, his life really unraveled and he got thrown in prison. Just bad stuff. And he got out, and first thing he wants to do is he wants to take the kids somewhere. Let's go visit. I'm like, no, it's not going to happen so much. Only under supervised conditions. But the resiliency for me really came to the point where I saw him for the first time after that. And all I wanted to do inside, and of course I didn't, but I internalized it. But I just wanted to rock his teeth down his throat for what he had done to his children. wasn't about me or Sophia or anything like that, but just the disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't. Instead, I just said, "Hey, can we talk for a minute?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Listen, man, I want to forget about all the past. I want to forget about it. Just take this stuff and put it aside, everything that's happened in the past. I need you to be present for your children. They need that normalization of that relationship. I need you and me to be okay where we're not going to want to fight all the time. I need you not to say hateful things to Sophia. And I need this to be as normal as possible. And I want the best for you. And I really, really would like to see you recover from the addictions and the things you're going through. When you're ready, please let me know, because I can help. And we'll do that for you." Now, he has not taken me up on that, but things have been so chill since then. And that, for me, I had to muster every bit of resiliency I had in me to hold that up, because I was going to get in trouble. This was going to go south real fast. And I had to really swallow that pride, that ugliness, and lean solely on my faith at that point, and know this is what Jesus would do. This is the right thing. I haven't had any issues with him since or anything, either as kids or wife, but for me, I know that sounds a little different than most people who go through resilience type stuff, but it's just as damaging to me if I'd have gone the other route with it.
Well, and you look at it this way, Randy, like those kids look at you and they see what a father is supposed to be. Yeah. They don't necessarily like you, right? Like it's like I tell Stanley, I don't necessarily like you all the time, but I love you just the same. And it's the same thing for dads. We get that from them. They won't always like us, and that's fine.
Right.
And that's what they see, but it's the value that they glean later in life that makes all of these decisions that we've made. And if you had made that one wrong decision to make him swallow his teeth, then what would that have? That would have taken all those good things that you've done.
It unraveled. It wouldn't have just affected me. This is the domino thing of it. It would have affected all the kids, Sophia, him, because he wouldn't have any teeth. It would have affected me because it would have unraveled all that change that I had gone through, and just unravel all of that. And I would have been back at square one.
And it's a choice that you have to make every single day, which is why you open up the Bible every single time.
All of it is a process. I keep reminding those people that are coming to the ministry, because some of them are like, "Well, I tried this and it didn't work." Dude, it's a process, okay? You just because you pray once, and it's so important that these people get fed. I always call it being fed, getting their nourishment. And what I mean by that is there's a step 10 is called continue. And I really, really foot stomp that. I always make sure I'm the one teaching that lesson, because I really want to foot stomp that for a reason. And it sounds like the blow off stuff. Yeah, continue. Cool. We'll keep going. No. When you go through this, when you're finishing with this little program you're going through here, well, that's just the beginning. You're in your infancy. Infantry. You're in your infancy. Right, I know. I'm getting a little tongue-tied. I apologize. But you're just, these are baby steps, right? You're a spiritual baby at this point, right? And you need to be fed. And part of that is you need to continue to seek the Lord and seek these processes. And part of that we do is through small groups. And you really need to get connected with a small group so you can continue to be fed, because just going to church one day a week on Sundays, is that going to cut it?
No, absolutely not. No.
I did that for years. I played church for years, and I'm like, back on the street doing what I want to do.
So here we have small groups, right? But then we also have smaller 2 to 3 person groups that we call DNA. discipleship and accountability.
But
if you think about DNA, it's a helix. And if you watch that, it's ever infinite, and it's small strands that make up the meaning of life. The complexity of life is really only made up by a few elements. And when you think about DNA, it has to be in you, right?
Right.
And that's where that element of the cross comes into play all through that. Because
I'm stealing that, right?
Oh, absolutely. Steal away, bro. It's yours.
Oh, yeah.
Hey,
Campbell once told me, he said, a good pastor steals from another one. So
it's the highest level of compliment.
Yes.
I think something like that. Bro, I am, and I call you brother because you genuinely are my brother. You and I have been through a lot. We understand a lot alike on what we've been through. Do you have any books that you would recommend to individuals that are going through? And trust me, folks, I know he has like a long list. He's putting on his glasses just so he can start to see these. Yeah. Give us some book recommendations that you have.
So for folks that are like really, really struggling with just anxiety in particular, there's a book called Anxious for Nothing. It's by Max Lucado. Anxious for Nothing. And it's a really good book to help you understand that, the things of this world are not necessarily where your total focus should be at all times. And, we get so worked up over the slightest things. And it's a really good book for people that are struggling with resiliency. Another one, and it's a classic actually, by C.S. Lewis, is the Screw Tape Letters. That one, just to understand how the enemy works and how he gets, under your skin. And it's the subtleties, and it's an altogether frightening thing, really, when you read about it. It's sinister, but it has such a great message in it. C.S. Lewis is a wonderful author. There's this guy named Neil T. Anderson, and I read 3 of his books while dealing with this Freedom and Recovery Regeneration Ministry. One of them is Victory Over Darkness. So when you're dealing with grief, loss, things like that, is a very great book to go through. The Bondage Breaker is the other one, that now we're talking about generational curses. We're talking about the cycle of things, the bitterness cycle. You continue to do things over and over again. You just can't get out of it. Bondage Breaker. And my favorite one by him is called Spiritual Warfare. I'm a warrior. You're a warrior. And I mean, that this is how we fight spiritually. This is how we fight. We're fighting principalities of darkness, right? On a daily basis. And that's a great book. Now, I got 2 other books, and they're not necessarily Christian books, but I highly, highly recommend them for reading, especially for males. I can't speak for females. I probably should, but for males, this is what I know. I'm a guy. The Autobiography of Theodore Roosevelt is just a fantastic read about being a man and being not just manly, but being a gentleman, being respectful of others, and holding yourself accountable. Great book. And the last one is 600-700 years old, The Art of War by Sun Tzu. And have you read that?
Oh, yes, I have. I love it.
It has so many good principles in it that can apply to everyday life. And I love that book. But those are always on my shelf. At the church where I'm working there, we have a library in my office. Actually, I've got an office, and there's some bookshelves up there. And of course, half of it's full of Bibles and stuff that I give away. I've got warrior Bibles that I give away. The regeneration books and grief share books and things like that. But the other side of it is strictly checkout, and it's for the security and safety team up there. And it's just, those books are on there. We encourage them to take a book, sign it out, and read it. It's important.
I don't know. Are you sure that Kyle didn't come up with this list of
No, Kyle's library, man. Did you see the den when you visited the other day, what they did?
No.
All those there's shelves all along that back wall now, or along that fireplace. Those are all Kyle's books. So now
This
we have
doesn't
the
surprise me.
Gateway Library that goes on over there.
And it's not even the Gateway Library. It's just the personal recordings of Kyle.
Yeah.
By the way, Kyle, if you don't, well, most of you wouldn't know, this man is he
Book
can
crazy.
quote stuff
Book.
that is just
Oh,
amazing.
yeah.
He goes into antique bookstores all over the country and just like buys them out of books.
I am fascinated by him. Just talking with him, hanging out, he's like a regular dude anytime. But if you get his ear on a subject and just,
oh yeah, you just sit back and just have to be dumbfounded.
I can listen for hours. It's amazing. And he what I like about Kyle is he asks those thought-provoking questions, and he really puts me on the spot a lot. And I'm glad he does, because I'll walk away, like, dang it, Kyle, and I'll come back about 2 or 3 days later. Hey, when you brought that up the other day, and then I'll have an answer. You
and I know from like Air Force boards that you sit down, and if you don't know the answer, you say, I don't know, but I will get back to you. That's Kyle. Kyle's like the walking board.
Yes, he is. He is.
Hey, Randy, you got any final words?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Listen, if you have a testimony, share it with somebody. That's like an order from Jesus himself. He said, till every tongue is heard, or till every ear is heard, every tongue confess. Right? Till all the world is heard. And see, the thing is, your testimony is the most powerful thing that you have, that you solely own, that God allowed to happen in your life, and God gave it to you. Here you go, buddy. That's yours. Because all this crap that I went through, all these things that I went through, all this anger, all these things I had to see and do, the injuries, the long nights, the terrible, the divorce that I went through, crawling in a bottle of Maker's Mark for 3 months. Oh, it's warm in Kentucky. Whatever it may have been, all these terrible things that went on with me was shaping me, was giving me that mighty testimony where I can go and say, but you know what? But Jesus. But Jesus. And I'm telling you, so everybody, and I stole this, and I use it all the time. To help get this across to people about how mighty their testimony is. So if you take a circle and you draw a circle and you write the word trials in there, and we all go through trials, right? We all go through trials, and these are terrible things that happen in life. Unfortunately, Satan has dominion over this earth, and he wraps things in shiny packaging for us, doesn't he? To catch the eye. And we're stupid and we're human and okay, let's do it, I'll go do that. But we do these and we get wrapped up into these things, and before we know it, we're trapped. And we have an iniquity, which is a sin in and of itself. The sin is a regular sin is I'm hammering nails, I hit my hammer and I cuss. I'm like, okay, that's not good, but that was unintended. That's not premeditated. The iniquity is the continued habitual, I know this is wrong, I'm doing it anyway, thumb your nose at God type of thing. That's a bad habit, basically. You take a bad habit, but you have those trials, right? Well, when you have those trials, the only way to really get out of those is you got to lead to the what I call the 4 T's. And the first T coming out of those trials is you have to learn how to trust Jesus. You have to put your trust in Jesus. The only way you're going to dig yourself out of there, it's just like that night when I threw that anchor down, that visual anchor that I had in my head. I have to trust you. That was step 1 for me, basically. I've got to fully trust. But the cool thing is, once you start trusting and you start walking, then you can become teachable. That's the second T. You become teachable, and you actually can start growing in your faith and actually start discipling and being discipled fully, and being trained and, molded, right? To help not just yourself, but not just your family, but others, right? And then the cool part is the third T. Once you get to that point, whatever that trial was, you have a triumph over it. You have triumphed over that trial at that point. You've trusted Jesus. You've become teachable. You've learned. You've grown. You've triumphed over it. And then the coolest part comes out of that is that you have your mighty testimony. That's the 4th T. And if you're armed with that and you have that at the ready, people are going to listen. When we do our regeneration ministry on Tuesday nights, the very first thing that happens is we have a little worship time. We have a couple of songs and whatnot. We have a time of prayer. But before I even get up there to speak, or anybody else who's just up there to speak, to deliver, it's just 15-minute message, whatever, on the step. We have a testimony from someone who's gone through regeneration. And it's the most gripping part of the night. And people are like just locked in. And it changes their thought process. And they see, oh my gosh, if he can, this guy was on heroin and he's doing, now he does this. If he can do that, surely I can overcome this. And they get their message and they go to their circles, and they pray and they learn and they talk together as a team. It's like Fight Club in those circles. What happens in there stays in there,
Mm-hmm.
It's very private and intimate that way. It is it is an amazingly successful ministry.
So do you mind? Can we say where this is at?
Yeah, Gateway Fellowship Church.
All right, there it is. Tuesday nights. If you're in the San Antonio greater area of San Antonio, 8 locations. Yeah. It's Tuesday nights at Gateway Fellowship Church.
The Northwest campus.
On the Northwest campus. It is, and you know what? We will actually provide you with Randy's email.
Yep.
So that if anyone wants any more information about what this ministry looks like, or needs information that you want to get to somebody, maybe someday we can start a digital version of this class, which would be awesome.
Nothing more I want to do than see this grow and grow and grow and grow.
I think it could. If we even go to a virtual Zoom type option type thing, Randy would be the one to be able to let you know the information, to get some information to you so that you can hear a little bit more about this. And I would love to be able to share that with you. But Randy, I am grateful from the bottom of my heart that you took time to invest into us, because I see what has happened to you, and I know that you are a walking testimony, that you are a walking breath of fresh air, to say the least. But today's episode is only possible thanks to my friend and producer, G. Frazier, with 369sounddesign.com. Jeff, we knew each other for about 4.5 years in our time in the military. You stepped out, you stepped up, you came alongside me, you helped me out in a lot of ways that I didn't even think that I needed, but that you showed me why I needed to do things the way that we were doing it. So I am blessed by you, my friend, as well as we are blessed by the entire team here at the Wartime Leadership Podcast. We will see you next time. Be blessed.